What is going on, Whisper Nation? What's going on, my dudes? Big Travy, Johnny Game Time Hicks in the boxes over to my left or right, depending on the perspective. It is the last day of March, March 31st, 2022, and you are joining the Fantasy Whispers for our Thursday night football show. Are we sticking with that title, guys? Is that what we're doing, Johnny?
TFW Live, baby.
TFW Live, baby.
Live.
That's
we
what
are
it is.
live.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
So you know how Johnny's doing. I don't even need to ask.
Johnny's live.
Hey.
What about you? He is live. He is alive on this one, and I love it. How about you, Travy? How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. It's I woke up. I'm alive. I worked. I am blessed.
Not bad, my man.
People still love me. It's all good.
When you ask someone how they're doing, they say they're alive.
Really is. You know, usually you can say that with some sarcasm. Like when people say, "Well, I got out of bed," you know, I woke up. Honestly, I think most of the time people say that they're just pissed. You know,
yeah,
they're just like fucking woke up still.
I always go back to the. I go back to the office line, you know, and when he knocks on the window or the door and he's like, "Hey, you ever hear anybody say to you, you know, somebody got a case of the Mondays?" And he's like, "Shit, no, man. You get shot saying something like that."
Yeah, you get your ass kicked saying something like that.
Yeah.
Which is why we reserve Mondays for the mock draft to keep us all sane. And if you're just tuning in here, Whisper Nation, we do our mock draft Mondays every single Monday, really no matter what point in the year it is. And, well, not during the regular season, but every other point other than that. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to the YouTube page, as well as follow us over on Twitter and Instagram, where we got a lot of content coming out your way. YouTube is our bread and butter here, where we produce all of our shows, though, including those mock drafts, where you can draft alongside with us both on Sleeper. And then immediately after that, we do a best ball tournament draft, $3 entry fee, right along with you, Whisper Nation. So we get to draft together, actually put some money down on the line, and we'll see during the season how that ends up working out. So join us on Monday, and we'll get all of that good stuff cooking. But it's Thursday right now, and I got to say what's up to our dudes over here. We got Ronald College jumping in. Freak Stomper, let's go. What's good? Great to have you here. When are you going to get Professor Ron on the stream, man? We're waiting, dude.
Hey,
come on.
The professor.
As Johnny says, you won't.
You gotta, yeah. Hey, you gotta announce it like that. You got the professor.
Is that what he's got to do? Is that we going the WWE style on this?
Yeah, exactly, dude.
I love it.
We're gonna get him in here, break the glass, put the fog machine on, and let Ron come in to play.
There we go. Let's go. All right, man. Well, let's go with the rest of the show on this one. We're going to be jumping into some of our NFL news from around the NFL right now. And the first big news that we ended up seeing was about Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is retiring from coaching. He's moving over to Tampa Bay Buccaneers front office. Defensive coordinator Todd Bowles picked to replace him. Staff being told the news at this hour. And we said that we weren't going to do these for the section, Whisper Nation, but I just want to see how it ended up working out on this one so we can see if we like it for later. Okay. Arians stepping down, moving up to the front office. Johnny, we talked a little bit about this before the show here, and this had a little bit of contention to it, or maybe not the full story is out. Like, was there a power play at hand? Was this a willing move by Bruce Arians? Let me get your take first, Johnny. What do you think is really going on in Tampa Bay right now?
I think that they're getting ready for this next season, led by Tom Brady, and we just need to ask ourselves, hey, what is the new ceiling for Tom Brady now that BA is out of the office? Because there were a lot of rumors, like Austin alluded to, that hey, Tom Brady and Leftwich would draw up these master plays called da bomb and throw it up on the screen, and we all know it looks like a running play. But in reality, it's a you just go, right? But then Bruce Arians come in there. He'd no, we're not running that. We're not doing those plays. So it'll be interesting. I mean, they weren't really called the bomb, but it will be interesting. In all seriousness, Bruce Arians was reportedly doing that each week to Tom Brady and Leftwich when they would draw up these plays. And so I wonder, it makes me think, honestly, could we see the best from Tom Brady this upcoming season? Now that the playbook is fully open, they don't have BA looking over their shoulder and saying, hey, you can't run that. No, that's too cute or not cute enough. It'll be
so they were there. So you are expecting more fantasy production or a more fantasy-friendly offense from the Buccaneers with Bruce Arians moving up and Todd Bowles moving in?
I think so.
Okay. What about you, Travis? What are your initial takes? This is pretty big news, both from the impacts to fantasy, impacts to the NFL, impacts to a lot of conversation that's coming around. What's going through your mind when you heard this news, Travy?
The biggest thing is, well, first I want to say what's up to Scott, who got in here as well as Do It 420. You guys, love you guys in the chat here. You can drop Karen Rogers whenever you want, Scott. I know you want to. Don't worry about it. What's up, Do It 420? I wanted to say hi to those guys before I jumped into it. Basically, there's two things I think that are super important here. One, I think it's funny that Johnny is like going against Bruce Arians after all those years. Bruce Arians like led the Cardinals, and it was like risk it for the biscuit, and you loved Bruce Arians, but now you're saying Bruce Arians is this huge impediment on Tom Brady, even though Tom Brady's had the best statistical career, two of the best statistical seasons in his career. I think he continues to do that. I think that's what really matters here. Byron Leftwich isn't like something strange or brand new to the situation. He has been under Bruce Arians' tutelage. It'll probably be very similar, very aggressive down the field. They have all the weapons. I don't think much changes here because we know in Tom Brady led teams, he's going to command the offense. The defensive side, Todd Bowles will now call plays and be head coach. I think it's interesting. Byron Leftwich didn't get the nod here. Remember, that's the second part I wanted to talk about. Byron Leftwich here, kind of the winner of the offseason. He was going to go take the Jaguars job. Basically told them, no, F off. I'm not going to do that. Decides to stay with Tampa, and Brady decides to come back right after Bruce Arians is fired. If the offense is even better again this year, he'll be, again, a head coaching candidate, I imagine, next year. But yeah, I would imagine more of the same from this squad. I mean, Austin, do you think anything changes? I think it stays relatively the same.
I think Tom Brady is the common denominator here, and I think Tom Brady gets really what Tom Brady wants, and I don't even think that's unfair. And I think that all of the speculation surrounding why this happened is fair speculation. You know, was there a power play? Did the styles of Bruce Arians and Tom Brady clash with one another? Tom Brady being super details oriented, Bruce Arians being a little more instinctual. Did these clash? Honestly, man, irrelevant to me. They have a Super Bowl together. They're still working together. They win a Super Bowl this year. They all get rings. It's not like Bruce Arians is gone, you know, and it totally makes sense to me that there could be some issues. Like, we've been a part of winning teams where you don't like everybody on the team, or you still don't say we could have made this team better. Perhaps Bruce Arians was a coach of the year without Tom Brady on his team. And he's been a Super Bowl champ with him there. So I think that no matter what happens, it's just kind of moving in a direction that works for everything. I think it works for fantasy. I think it works for the Buccaneers. I think it works personally for Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. Scott comes in here thinking, I think a mix of Brady and defensive head coach is obviously attractive. It's kind of an interesting take.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, let Brady do what he wants to do and handle the defensive side of the ball. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think the relationship is good there. And remember, I believe the initial report was that he was going to take a front office role, right? Bruce Arians was actually going to remain in the building and take a front office role.
Johnny, you said that wasn't the case. Is that right?
It's not. Is that not happening?
No. He is. I'm sorry. He is taking a front office role. He is. I thought you were talking about before that, because Johnny had been sharing with me that prior to this news, Arians was like, I'm not going to be taking any other role. I like what I'm doing. And then this happened, which gave a little bit more to the really going on there in Tampa Bay.
Well,
but yeah, he's
the whole
pissing contest came out and Tom Brady won, and Bruce Arians had to go take a job or not have one.
It's a narrative that's being considered.
And that's the big topic and turning point of like, hey, why is this so out of the ordinary, or like kind of out of nowhere? Is there something else behind the scenes? And I was just saying, like, the whole point of why it seems kind of fishy and not lining up is because Peter King was the one that had dropped this information that BA was moving to the front office, that Todd Bowles was going to take over as the head coach. But the reason why it's so intriguing or interesting was because right after Tom Brady came out of retirement, Peter King was the one that was coming on his network and as well as on other shows and saying, hey, not everybody's, and he never put a name to it, but he always was saying, hey, there are people in this organization that actually aren't happy Tom Brady is coming back. They were relieved when he had announced he was retired because they wanted to move on because he is so, strong-headed and he's set in his ways that it rubs some people the wrong way. And so, you can only kind of read the tea leaves there. Is that person that he was talking about, Bruce Arians? And it would make sense that Peter King would have that relationship with Bruce Arians, where Bruce Arians would open up like that to him because they're as a head coach, they're pretty close, things like that. But it's all speculation. But ultimately, I do want to, I'm intrigued and see what Tom Brady can do this next year.
No doubt. And I think speculation aside, the facts point to what's happening. Bruce Arians is no longer the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Either he didn't want to be, Tom Brady didn't want to be, somebody didn't want him there, could have been himself, whatever. We are now where we are. Things are different, but they might not have changed that much. We'll see. Well,
B, A, B, C, D. It doesn't matter. Tom Brady's the quarterback, right? Like it doesn't it
all spells the same thing. Yeah. GOAT.
And that's 12. Yeah, exactly. GOAT. Let's go.
That's the end of it. Well, Do It 420 says Pete Carroll is next. And are you looking at our
I will tell you right now, if Seattle does this to Pete Carroll, they are beyond stupid because they could have done this and saved their franchise quarterback. And that's what they should have done was got rid. I'm still in this camp that they should have gotten rid of Pete Carroll and moved on with, feature Russ. You have 2 wide receivers, go after that. But they've already blown it up, and now they're going to fire Pete Carroll? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought that's why they did all this.
It was an interesting question on there, and we'll have to see what comes out of Seattle. There's obviously a lot of change coming up, and part of that is the running back for Seattle, where Pete Carroll on Chris Carson's neck surgery said that the question is whether or not he can take the hits, that being Chris Carson, and all that kind of stuff. We'll have to wait and see, but Chris Carson is planning on coming back. Does this give me as much pause? Does this give you guys as much pause as it gives me? Johnny, we started with you on the Bruce Arians subject. I'll kick it to Travis over here first. Chris Carson and the running back spot for Seattle. What are we looking at here, Travis?
Well, first of all, I can't believe I'm agreeing with Johnny right now, but #free Rashad Penny. Let's get Chris Carson out of here for medical reasons. I like the ADP of Rashad Penny this year in redraft. I think it's great. But I will say that I think that Chris Carson, the interesting thing to me is that Chris Carson has had the most gruesome injuries. I remember the first year in redraft that I took Chris Carson, I actually traded for him. And the next week he blew up his leg in an air cast. They had him out there. They carted him off. And I didn't think this guy was going to be he's just continuously done it. Now he's got neck injuries, chronic neck injuries. I mean, at one point, you just have to say, I can't keep playing this game, especially at the running back position where I'm getting hammered by essentially what equates to a vehicle every single play. He's got to be done here, I would think. But I've seen players try to, muscle through it. So
what about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm with Travis on this one. I feel bad for Chris Carson because it's just the type of runner he goes against everything it says in that and from Pete Carroll. So it's just maybe Pete Carroll knows that, or Pete Carroll might be out, so it doesn't even matter anyway because that was Pete Carroll's guy. So
that's a great point. Johnny says, Pete Carroll's out here saying it's got to, if he can take the hits. I mean, whenever we've watched Chris Carson before, he didn't care if he took any hits. He was mauling people out there. Now it's definitely, if you give that kind of runner hesitation, is he going to be that effective of a runner anymore? I think it's time to let go, Chris Carson.
I am not banking on Chris Carson playing any meaningful football, let alone possibly any football at all, let alone meaningful or not. I'm all aboard the Rashad Penny in redraft. Quick question on this one. Where does Rashad Penny belong to be selected in redrafts next year? Johnny, start with you and your boy.
I mean, I can't imagine wanting to take him any higher than the 4th or 5th round. I know that
makes sense to me. If Carson's gone, which we'll have to see how that goes, and they don't draft anybody past maybe the 4th round, 5th round in the NFL draft, I think he's got to go 3rd, 4th round.
Why would he be rated any higher than that?
I'll tell you why. It was Chris Carson because Rashad Penny was the number 1 running back over the last 6 weeks of football, and there's no competition behind him, and they don't really have a quarterback, so he
Okay, and that's
is he a second round running back?
No, that's a good point as to what you're saying. So, is there upside? Absolutely, but let's not forget David Montgomery was in the same exact boat last year. Popped off at the end of the season, had an even better season, and there wasn't
was
as
the RB 15 in points per game.
Yeah, and guess where he was going? The back of the end of the third, the beginning of the fourth. I think that's the highest that you can say on these running backs. That yes, is the upside absolutely. We've seen it, but can you trust it? No, you can't because of the injury concerns, because of the coaching.
I'm interested to
right
see
now.
what kind of, and this is probably a different topic, so I don't mean to derail us here, but I'm interested to see what kind of PTSD we get from the first round last year. Because the first round was brutal last year, which means our guys going to start pivoting towards, a modified, zero RB, where it's like wide receiver first and then a running back. And where does that shift people down? I don't know. I think there's still the truthers out there, but yeah, there's a situation for sure in which I think that we're going to be a little bit hurt by last year's first round. And I think guys like Rashad Penny and they're going to be pushed down a little bit because of this ripple effect.
I hear what you're saying there, Johnny, on David Montgomery. We also had, who was the scat back that was supposed to be playing at the top of the year for Chicago that got hurt again? Tariq Cohen. Thank you. Is there another running back? Like, is DJ Dallas a threat? Is Alex Collins a threat or anything like that for Seattle? Or is it Rashad Penny and Rashad Penny alone now?
I guess this is Johnny's question. Sorry.
Well, I think it would totally. I'm not too worried about any of those guys.
Yeah.
I would be more so watching what they do in the draft, right? And how high do they take a running back? Now, they're probably going to take a running back. So, like, I don't just say that to scare off anybody. Oh, if they take a running back,
it's Pete Carroll. He's for sure taking a running back.
Right. But it's like, do they take a running back in the second or third or maybe even fourth round? Screams a huge difference to me on if they or when they want to use that running back versus if they get a running back in the fifth, sixth, or seventh. That's a huge difference to me.
Yeah.
I mean, like DJ Dallas was taken in what? DJ Dallas they kind of took recently, but then Rashad Penny was taken in the first. And he's been wow, I don't know. This is such an interesting one.
Yeah, Austin, you mentioned those last 6 weeks. And in those last 6 weeks, the most catches he had in a game was 2. So it's not like he was getting a ton of receiving work. He was scoring touchdowns. He was getting the bulk of the carries. Now, in a Pete Carroll offense, that's going to be valuable. And again, we talked about this. He could be the main vein. We could see a situation where that happens on a really crappy team, of course. But that's still going to give you RB2, RB3 return.
Whisper Nation is not a big Penny fan as of yet. Scott coming in saying he wouldn't take Penny before the 7th or 8th.
Scott,
Ronald saying
Scott always. That's how Scott is with running backs. He was always wanting to take late running backs.
Croc boys, Sierra hide the Crocs. Why? Because I'm about to get like hammered by beautiful women because of all of these Crocs.
Yeah, dude. Save some for the rest of us.
The real thing, dude. Crocs are the real thing, baby.
Dude,
if you don't love them, it's because you're not letting yourself like them.
No, they're great. I will vouch for them. As a former Croc hater that has been turned around, I am born again in the Church of Croc.
That's what they do, man. They make you feel brand new. That's certainly it. Well, we're going to move on to a brand new subject here, folks, to the Chiefs talking about Ronald Jones as their newest addition. The Chiefs signed Ronald Jones to a 1-year deal per source. Jones had 2 seasons with 1,000 yards from scrimmage in Tampa Bay and should have ample opportunity in Kansas City. Johnny, coming over to you first, how do you think that the Chiefs are going to be incorporating Ronald Jones? What do you see the impact for both the run game in Kansas City and the other skill positions there for Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, this is really intriguing for me. I think Ronald Jones is probably going to be a running back that I'll target simply because, you look at his body of work, and when he was the between the tackles. He's not going to be the pass catching. So you have to presume if you're doing rational coaching, which again is assuming something that could potentially not happen. But if I'm thinking about it, CEH is a much better pass catcher. They still need that in that offense. So I could very easily see Ronald Jones becoming kind of that main running back the 1 and 2 between the tackles. So we'll probably see between 30 and 40% of the team's rushing share. And then you've got CEH going to be getting the rest of it, which might actually help him stay more effective and efficient when he's on the field. And so I actually think that this is going to cause both of these running backs values to come down. Obviously, you're not going to have to pay as much, but in redraft leagues. But I do think that there is going to be value there in potentially both these guys, depending on how late they go.
I'm laughing because if we let Scott just like on the show and you're like, hey, what do you think of Ronald Jones? He'd just be like, Jones sucks. And then he'd just move on. Yeah. It's like, Scott, like, it was a little bit of depth there. No, but I understand why people want to say that, because he did kind of flunk out of Tom Brady's offense, right? In more ways than one.
What a way to frame it. I like that.
28 and 31 receptions, though, in 2019 and 2020. So he's not a nobody when catching the ball. They did have a ton of drops in Tampa Bay, which is why they went and got Gio Bernard. But I actually agree with Johnny here. I think it's a great value to look at Ronald Jones. I actually think this is one of those situations, though, where if I'm playing in like 7 or 8 leagues, and I know that may sound like a lot, I'm going to go half and half. I'm going to go CEH and Ronald Jones, and I'm going to invest in this offense, invest in somebody, and try and get them. So obviously CEH is going to be your more expensive one, but I think people are going to be so burned on CEH. He's an interesting post-type sleeper for me because I think that they're going to be still invested in him, even more so now with Tyreek Hill gone. They're going to be invested in guys they know around there, especially Patrick Mahomes. I'd imagine he's going to be leaning on guys he knows around in the locker room, especially a guy who's his reputation's a little on because he's the one who said go get him. So I think they could try to still one more year get CH to work, but I love trying to get Ronald Jones in the back end. Ronald coming in here saying it seems like Singletary and Moss to me. Well, I think both of these guys are a lot better than Singletary and Moss, and I think this offense is one that runs more than Buffalo ever has. So I think, Patrick Mahomes, he's not one that runs a ton in the end zone either, like Josh Allen.
That's the bigger part is you don't have Pat Mahomes taking all of those rushing touchdowns.
Guys, I'm getting goosebumps, and you know how I am with my goosebumps on this one. But I'm really starting to think about it. First off, Ronald, I think that this comp isn't bad here on the Singletary Moss. And when we look at the numbers of Ronald Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're a little bit better, even that they're both averaging like around 4.3 yards per carry. Even the deep metrics aren't horrible on these ones. And I'll just throw this one out there. I think we continually are disappointed in Clyde Edwards-Helaire because a few years ago, he was the first running back taken off the board playing for the best offense in the game. And he never rose above a back end RB2 on this one, but he still has been like a back end RB2. And when he gets action, when he gets going, Ronald Jones, similar kind of thing. So these are two running backs who had higher draft capital, who have been overall disappointing, but I think they've honestly been a little bit better than the credit they've received. However, we saw last year Andy Reid close out the offense with a dynamic backfield that even had Jerick McKinnon and Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting a lot of work. We got one of our underdog bet slips blown the hell up because just forgot that Jerick McKinnon was so involved, and that dude was taking up a lot of work. So I'm looking at this Kansas City backfield right now and saying, maybe I go with the very last running back that's available of theirs because I'm not feeling super confident in who's going to get the lion's share of anything in the backfield.
That's why I was saying like diversify. If I'm in multiple leagues, I want to split the difference on that because I do think, Mr. Miyagi saying not touching this backfield. I can understand that. But I think that you're leaving value on the table when you do things like that. When you just say, I'm going to avoid a backfield completely, you got to go and try and like put your name on a couple guys, differently and see if any of them pan out. It's a great way to kind of diversify. Johnny,
what ends up happening is that this is one of those guys. We get these topics, and I'm guilty of it as well in the past of saying, hey, I'm not going to just touch this backfield, right? I don't know. But the problem is when you don't do that, you miss out. You miss out on James Conner because guess what? This is exactly the same thing that was being said. I'm not going to touch Arizona's backfield because it's just too complicated, not good enough. Same thing could be said. We talk about Kansas City where
you could say
look at Darrell Williams.
Yeah, you could say the same backfield that Jones came from, Tampa Bay. And then you would have missed out on Leonard Fournette, who was an RB1 down the stretch before he got injured. So, you're looking at – I'm with you on that.
And if you look at what Darrell Williams did while CH was out, and that's what you're kind of, and it sounds terrible, right? You're kind of banking on an injury, but that's what's going to give you that value.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Like CH, not ideal health, right? Neither for Ronald Jones. They both missed. So if you're doing, to case in point, what Travis is saying, split up your things, because I know that Scott's in 28 leagues. So in
Scott
14 leagues, do Jones, and in 14 leagues, take CH. And in half of them, you're going to be happy.
Oh man!
Now, Johnny, you brought up a really, really good point, and this is one of my Austin's fantasy diary. The things that I put in there. This is just true for all fantasy sports, where I don't care how burned you've been by any situation. If you're playing this game, keep playing the game, and that means look at who is up next. Like you might say, "Oh, this backfield never produces," and then Michael Carter comes around for the Jets and actually is pretty good. You know what I mean? And if you went ahead and just said, well, this guy's never going to be good, then you really missed out on a Michael Carter when he was on that run. Or Travy, you pointed out Leonard Fournette. Johnny, you mentioned James Conner, who was a back-end pickup. These are all real pieces that you got to keep your eye looking out. Coaches change their schemes when they're failing, especially on bad teams. When they're really trying to hold on to their job, they'll do all different kinds of stuff. Or maybe they just decide they want to see how this rookie running back stacks up, and they're actually not trying to win games anymore. And so they're going to give this young guy a bunch of work, and he's actually kind of dynamic for fantasy purposes.
And if I'm thinking like Andy Reid, competition-wise, Austin, Johnny, this is the best way to get the most out of CH and Ronald Jones. I'm going to bring them both in here, and I'm going to make them compete against each other, and we'll see which one happens. And I just think that it's going to be worth it a lot more than a Buffalo situation. And Devin Singletary ended up being really good down the stretch last year. So, and
to Mr. Miyagi's point, he said, remind me which Kansas City Chiefs was good as of late. Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams was a beast last year.
And on volume, kind of alone, plus pass catching.
But he had some really nice pass catching. But
you get 20 carries, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and Andy Reid, he produces some good running backs over the last, over his time. So, there is value there. Is it a risk? Absolutely, it's a risk, but it depends on how much you have to pay for that risk, and it seems to be worth it. If
we've had RB2 to RB1 value over the last few years, especially with Patrick Mahomes involved too. I mean, I love how the chat's going off, but they must have forgot about Damian Williams. Must have forgot about Kareem Hunt before that. I mean,
real question on the Chiefs. Oh my God.
Yeah, Jamal Charles. Yeah,
boy, Jamal.
Yeah,
Jamal Charles makes me feel like I'm home.
Hey, you get the.
It's not even the goosebumps on this one. Goosebumps
the other
are
bumps, dude. It's the lovely lady lumps.
Oh, dude, that's a special feeling, Lloyd.
Jamal Charles is my first love.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Really though. Moving on though to Sean Payton's first love in Taysom Hill now, who's going to be focusing on. Wait, did I miss a good joke?
No, that's good.
No, that was
yours. Was good.
That was better than mine.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I'm glad we're on this track now. But just kidding. Taysom Hill to focus on tight end. This little parting gift that Sean Payton left the Saints organization. A little
finally, dude. A
little dude.
Finally, can we get rid of the Taysom Hill project, dude?
Oh my God, no! He's going to be focusing on tight end, according to Dennis Hallen. That is the plan. And I know this is crazy. This is like the most expensive tight end since Urban Meyer wanted to sign Tim Tebow.
They just redid his contract.
Well, it has void years in it, I believe. It was set up to be that way. It looks a lot, but I think they can get out of it pretty cheaply.
Is that why they're doing that? That might be why they're designating, because then if he gets the tight end numbers, then he's more. Wow. Yeah, he will be.
Ronald's saying no, it's not.
No, it's not what? No, it's
He's saying no, it's not.
Yeah, if he
gets right,
then he paid $8 million. Yeah,
right. But if he's a quarterback, he gets paid a lot more. Or even
that's how.
He might be saying no, it's not till the experiment's over. It's definitely over.
Oh, I see.
You don't have to worry about him being a quarterback anymore. That's what I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my question. This is such a funny dynamic here. Obviously, for a handful of reasons, Sean Payton's first love there and Taysom Hill and all that weirdness that was going on. The question to me comes up, Travis, is Taysom Hill possibly like a wildcat tight end? Does he have any gadget attraction in this upcoming Saints team? for you?
Remember, was it 2 years ago, his first stint as a starter, he was labeled a tight end, especially in ESPN fantasy leagues. So you could get that dual eligibility. If you get him there and he's a tight end and we start to see some stuff, I think he'd be like worth one of those like, gadget end of the bench, roster spots. But other than that, I'm not really excited about anybody on New Orleans right now. Save unless we get some inspiring news out of Alvin Kamara. But I'm not really excited about him, especially as tight end. They already have Adam Troutman, who I think is a nice upstart, talented tight end. So I'm not really even taking him ahead of Adam Troutman on the same team, especially in like a dynasty format. So,
what about you, Johnny?
Taysom Hill probably wears Crocs. Scott says.
Hey, probably does.
He probably helped him get that crazy deal.
He fucks hard too. So
I think there is I would bet that there will be 1 week, and it'll take over the fantasy football community probably at least 1 week.
It certainly will for us.
Yeah, when Taysom Hill will probably play quarterback.
Yeah, because Jameis will get it.
It's going to happen at least probably once this year. So like, there's going to be that conversation. There's the glitch. Like that's like one of the best glitches that you could possibly have would be playing a quarterback at a tight end position. So will he be worth drafting? No, but you better be quick on that, trigger finger as far as pick up waiver wires, because if that's going to be true, if you get him at the quarterback, that's an absolute fantastic I don't know how you lose.
That would be a really nice one. So get your fingers ready to pick up Taysom Hill. Should that be happening, but keep an eye out. While you got those fingers moving, go ahead and click the like and subscribe button now. Yeah. Go ahead and get connected to the show. We're going to be coming at you all off season long. We've got our mock draft Mondays that we hit you with. And then on Thursdays, we do TFW Live, the Thursday Night Football Show. We're going to be getting ready for some more draft content coming up, live streaming those events, and would absolutely love to have you along with us throughout the year. Let's do it. We got a new member of Whisper Nation jumping in here, I think. I don't know. Have we seen Barber Shack coming in? What's going on, Barber?
What's up?
Love to have you here. And we're going to, before we move into our next topic, let's go ahead and address Barber Shack's question here. Who's your guys' number 1 through 5 running backs in fantasy this year right now? So I don't have my list right up in front of me, but I'm going to pull up a general list and just take a look at some of what we got. But maybe we can kind of work through this one.
Jonathan Taylor, number 1.
I agree.
I would put Austin Eckler in there. Maybe not number 2, but he's in that top 5 for me. He's probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
Where I have difficulty is between Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook.
Okay. Both top 5s though for you?
And then to round that out, I do think Najee's in that discussion, but I also do think that Nick Chubb is in that discussion.
Keeping Nick Chubb in there.
There's like 6 out of 5, right? Like I gave you 6, you said name 5, but for me, there's a couple that are like Derrick Henry to me. Like, is it surprise me if he's number 1 next year, even if he only plays 10 games? No, like he's so damn good. But again, like there's always that like risk. And so I don't know. For me, I would probably have JT, Najee, Eckler, Henry, and then Chubb just above Cook. Cause I also don't know about Cook, and what that fiasco could be.
What about you, Travy?
I'm in the same kind of boat, except for that I have Derrick Henry as number 2. And my reasoning is we want to start hot in fantasy. And I think we kind of let this get a little by the wayside. You want to get your wins up so you can try and make the playoffs. Then anything can happen,
advantage
right?
Of trades.
I want to take, if Henry's going to burn out at the end of the year, or kind of like he did last year where he has this issue. And then that's the only fear that we're not drafting Henry, right? At number 2 is we think that all of this usage is eventually going to wear him down. Give me JT, then give me Derrick Henry. Then I'll take Austin Eckler because, again, I'm going to start hot here, and he could end. I'm just worried less about his injury situation than I am CMC's, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then I go with Dalvin Cook ahead of CMC. Now, if I were to hear things about, the suspension or whatever, then I would go with, CMC over Dalvin. But that's kind of where I'm at.
I feel all those points, and the name that I actually have in my top 5, and I'm sticking by it, is Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon last year broke out, and I don't see any reason to think I don't see a reason suggesting he won't do better than he did last year. Confirming Joe Mixon's age right here. Joe Mixon currently is 25 years old. He finished last year as the number 3 running back in standard, number 4 in PPR. He did miss a game as well with that. It was his best season thus far. 13 touchdowns, had 42 receptions, 314 yards. The offensive line got a little bit better. Joe Burrow in his 3rd year should be a little bit better. I don't see a reason that unless they go ahead and draft a great running back in this year's draft. I don't know why Joe Mixon doesn't repeat as a top 5 running back on this one.
Yeah, it's so funny. We talked about PTSD from the first round, and yet we're fighting over who to get in the top 5 here, which again, I think, is just makes there's going to be a lot to choose from. It's just going to be which one you think has the best risk profile for your particular team. And I think that's just kind of what we will dissect and go through as we get through with our rankings and all that stuff here. I want to say later to Scott. He's peacing out of here. Says he's got to run.
Peace out, Scott.
He's going to go watch Milwaukee.
That's going to be
on the Suns tomorrow.
No, they're not, but I just love the Suns.
Nice.
So
nice.
That'll be fun. They beat us in the
Have a good time. So. Be safe.
Enjoy. That's going to be awesome.
Safe. I do want to
say what's up to Karen while you're over there.
Yeah, say what's up to Karen. Exactly. I do want to say that it's funny. We always talk about some of these players and like post PTSD or like, and it's funny. We are just 1 year removed. And I mean, 1 year removed from us literally trying to sell people on the fact of like trying to go out and get Joe Mixon and that he could actually be a fantasy steal last year. And so many people were saying, hey, no, I don't want to because they have that PTSD of like injury and like all this thing. And it just goes to show like injuries are a real thing. Everyone has to deal with it, but it's also a little bit of luck of avoiding those. And then it's whether or not how much you pay up for that evaluation. Because I agree with you. Can Joe Mixon get a little bit better? Absolutely. Now, will he? Or are we going to overdraft
Johnny says
him?
No. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, it's not that I say no. It's just that I have more confidence. For example, I have more confidence that Nick Chubb would be finished as a top 5, even though he finished behind Joe Mixon last year, than Joe Mixon actually returning as a top 5. That's just my opinion.
I wanted to just point on,
not fantasy football advice. Do your own research.
I wanted to point to Barbara's other point here. We talked about Mixon. He also mentioned Javonte Williams. I just want to say that I think everybody on this panel is really high on Javonte Williams. And if the Broncos do not get another startable running back in there, like if Melvin Gordon goes somewhere else, who is still unsigned last time I checked, I think we like that as possible potential, but I'm still not putting Javonte Williams ahead of the other names that we mentioned. Am I surprised if he finishes that good? Am I surprised if he finishes better than Najee Harris, who we all said Javonte Williams was the better prospect skill-wise and fantasy-wise coming out of college? No. I'm not surprised at all, but until I see it happen, I'm not going to put Javonte Williams ahead of any of the other names that we just mentioned. But I like Javonte Williams a lot myself.
It's just that sweet. It's
Penny.
That sweet
Where's
spot of like,
Penny on that list.
He's at 4.5. He's
4.5.
Yeah. So Javonte, this one's an interesting take. So say nothing happens, like Austin was getting at there. If you want to get him at a value, you've got to wait on Javonte. You can't take him where you think he's going to finish. You're going to get him at a value here. And it may be the last year you get to do so if he ascends to be the guy we want him to be, right? So take your breath in and go and get him where you can get him. Don't get excited and draft him just because you think he's going to end up
I don't
there.
think you're going to have any value on Javonte Williams this year because of the comments we're seeing right now. I mean, Javonte Williams finished as an RB17 in PPR. The part you're excited about is those weeks 13 and 14 games when Melvin Gordon wasn't in there and he had 23.5 points in 1 week and 20.5 points the next. So we know what he's capable of.
You love Russell Wilson coming over.
Great point.
Yeah.
Well, and
you love it all. The problem is it's just trying to get him at that right value, because there is a situation where you draft him, or maybe Melvin Gordon comes back. There's a timeshare even more, or maybe there's a situation where it just takes him a little while in pass pro. And if you're not pass protection is not good with Russell Wilson, they'll get you off the field really quick. You know what I'm saying? So,
and then just last point I want to make on it is, the other thing that, and a lot of people don't necessarily talk about this point, but it was something that I really learned last year playing. certain guys have value with just within their name. So, for example, you drafted Javonte because you're on board. You think Melvin Gordon, whatever the reason, you're on board. You draft him, he doesn't quite pan out. He's not bad. He's a Kenyon Drake, right? He's getting in the end zone here and there, but not quite what you would draft him at to be, in that mid first round, even second round. The problem is if you get a Derrick Henry or you get a Nick Chubb, you get one of these other guys, a Joe Mixon even, and he's not quite panning out the way that a top 5 would. The thing is, you could still use his name value to get, 75 cents, 80 cents on the dollar, whereas Javonte really hasn't built that up yet. So if he doesn't quite get off to the start that you're, wanting, it was like Myles Gaskin last year, where like there was the talent there and he was somewhat producing, but nobody really believed in Myles Gaskin. So I couldn't trade him. I had to eventually just drop him. And because no one is going to give you the value, and so
I don't know if I'm all the way.
I'm not going to put. I'm not going to
Gaskin finish as a RB2 last year.
I'm not going to put Javonte Williams in the same category as Myles Gaskin. I think
I like Antonio Gibson. I like Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Comp.
Okay. That's a good one as well.
Well.
Yeah, he's not conceding
Good
the
for
point
you, man. Good for you. That
hey.
takes some fucking cojones right there to hold that down. And I love you so much for it, dude. I really do. The Peanut Gallery says Mike Davis. Interesting one on that. What's Mike Davis up to right now? Is he playing in the NFL or is he playing at home with his kids?
He's probably playing at home.
Probably playing at home.
Probably looks what's going on there. Here, Scott giving you a shout out on this one. And now we're going to go ahead and give the Buffalo Bills a bit of a shout out here, because the news is that Sean McDermott is looking for Josh Allen to run less in 2022. We want to evolve, he says. This means Josh Allen would be presumably in the end zone less. Maybe Devin Singletary is in there more. Johnny, what do you think about this news coming out? You buying it? I got to do my plug of Hugh Jackson on the mock draft marathon from 2021. Folks, if you're tuning in and you're not a normal part of Whisper Nation, first off, welcome. It's great to have you here. If you like what you're listening to, think about liking and subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you a part of the crew. But we do every year the mock draft marathon, where we do 24 hours live of mock drafting, a new mock on the hour, every hour for 24 straight hours. And we bring on different industry professionals, friends of the show. It's a really great event. And last year we had former head coach Hugh Jackson on the show for a full hour, and we got to ask him some great questions. And one of them was, how much truth should we take from a head coach press conference? They say a lot of different things. Are they telling the truth? Are they trying to throw us off the scent? What should we really take to heart? And he said that it is always intended to do something, but just telling you the truth for the truth's sake is not the point. They don't care about that at all. Maybe they're trying to motivate a player on their team. Maybe they're trying to throw off an opponent. There is a reason why. So just take that to heart. With that build-up, Johnny, what do we think about this news from Sean McDermott saying that Josh Allen's going to run less, they want to evolve?
This is something we've been asking for a couple of years now, or at least speculating that it would make sense that they do this.
I have Josh Allen in Dynasty. I don't want him to stop running.
No, I'm not saying that. Of course, we don't want him to stop running if we have him. Of course, like you want all those fantasy points. What are we doing? We're playing a game. Of course, you want that. But what I'm saying from a coaching perspective, and it's like someone, it would make sense, trying to be a rational coach here. Hey, we've got our franchise quarterback who, oh, by the way, we're paying plus $300 million over the next 5 years. Hey, maybe we should not put him in dangerous positions where he could get his head knocked off and not be able to make it to those future years. So
Cam Newton.
We've been asking this, but again, it hasn't really panned out. We've been saying, hey, in our projections, we're, I think that Josh Allen will regress in rushing, yet he has yet to do so. So to your case in point, could it be something they're trying to do? I would imagine they would try to protect their asset in that way, but will it actually finally evolve into that? That's the big question. I'm not so sold that that's actually the case. It's very hard to turn a quarterback that is so used to just pulling down the ball and running and then being like, hey, Josh,
I think
stop doing that.
I actually think it's the opposite of what we think it was. So if we look at Josh Allen over his first 3 years in the league, over 100 attempts, 8, 9, and 8 rushing touchdowns in those seasons, those first 3 years. This year, something changed a little bit. He ran about 20 more times, 122 attempts, scored less touchdowns. So, Ron was in here talking about designing runs versus him running himself. And I think that's the key here. If we're looking at it, it's about 20 more runs. Maybe they design more Josh Allen runs, and McDermott looked at the tape and he's saying, I really don't want to do that. That's why we go pick up a Duke Johnson. We keep the running backs in tow. We saw what Devin Singletary did. Mm-hmm. Does this mean that Josh runs more in the red zone like he's been tended to do in the previous years? I don't know. It's going to be a weird thing to watch, the pendulum switch. Mm-hmm. I think if they design less runs, he comes back to 100 carries again, and he can score less touchdowns. He'll still be effective. He'll still be getting you Konami code-like production, and he should probably still be the number 1 QB drafted in fantasy. The point is, what Johnny was really trying to say is the reason we wanted this is because we were trying to project the backfield for years here. Yeah. We were trying to get a situation of like which running backs to draft, who can we get? And this is where we're at. And I think if we can buy into this and believe it, I'm hesitant to, because big players make big plays in big games, and Josh Allen's going to keep running on fools for as long as his head's on straight.
Hey, unless you don't get the ball.
Can I throw
the ball?
No, I'm saying like he didn't get the ball back in the.
Now he will. So
let me jump in on this one a little bit, because I think that there are a lot of things working towards Josh Allen running the ball less, and this then being an increase for the running back in Buffalo, be that Devin Singletary, Zach Moss,
Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson, thank you. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Not really. They're all individuals and they're all great, beautiful, different people. But they're all scat backs there if we're talking about Duke Johnson or Jerick McKinnon. My point was that I think there is some real plausibility to this, and I want to talk about it in the lens of rock climbing. I like to rock climb, Whisper Nation. Any rock climbers out there, give a shout out. But one of the principles on there is to spend as little energy as possible ascending the rock face. Right? It doesn't matter if you can just like do straight pull-ups to get yourself to the top. You want to spend as little energy as you possibly can getting up to the top. It's working as efficiently as possible, not as strong or as cool or any of those things. That's a standard principle. And I think that can apply to a lot of different elements in sports, fantasy football and quarterbacking, the same kind of thing. Josh Allen might want to run the ball the same way I just love to just do overhangs and climb up like that. But it's not the most efficient way to accomplish the task. If he wants to save his body, he should not have a car accident multiple times a game. That's just a standard. Yeah. Can he handle it? Of course he can. He's given us multiple years of the number 1 overall quarterback doing this thing. But it does take a toll. And if you can score the same amount of points by evolving your game a little bit and upping your run game, that's just objectively smarter way to go about it. Mm-hmm. And is it hard to change? Absolutely. That's why he used the word evolve. It's taking on a new form. Can he do it? We'll see. I don't know, but I think there are reasons why that it could happen, and I would say it should happen.
Yeah, and it probably will, right? If we look at the strategy of Josh Allen, or the way Josh Allen's progressed in his career, remember, he came in, we knew the talent was there. He was just extremely raw, and nobody thought, okay, is he going to be able to hit the ground running? He has literally improved every year in the league, so we like to think that's going to happen. And what has Buffalo done? They've said, hey, you've gotten better. We want to keep you away from running. We're going to go get more weapons for you. We're going to continue to pour weapons in. We're going to go trade for Stephon Diggs. We got Emmanuel Sanders the year we did that. Now they're doing some more things this offseason, and they got in Duke Johnson too to help the running game. I think it's all trending in the right direction to where you can actually kind of believe the writing on the wall in this coach speak.
It makes a lot of sense. Before we move on too far, Ronald, I wanted to shout out one thing, and that's before we get too far, where he said that we wouldn't bring you on. We would absolutely love to bring you on. And I was thinking I wanted to bring this one up just because we're on air, and so we can rewind the tape should we need to. We mentioned the mock draft marathon. I think it would be great to have a section where we brought some Whisper Nation on to draft with us, stream along with us. Yeah. We can get multiple of those 24 different mocks that we do. Ron, we would love to have you come on board. And
maybe even even one of the mock draft Mondays leading up to, we can start getting some of the guys that mock with us and a guest on there for sure.
Have your people talk to our people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll get this one here.
Yeah, speaking of people, Professor.
Speaking of people talking about people, we got Cliff Kingsbury making some comments on Rondale Moore. Exciting one. He said that a bigger role, there's no doubt. Last year, just with the numbers with Christian Kirk, AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. Rondale Moore, that is, more than he should have. He's a dynamic player. With Christian leaving, we expect him to fill that role. Y'all have heard me talk about Steve Keim, GM of the Arizona Cardinals, many times, and I'm not usually doing it with love in my mouth. That man has drafted 10 wide receivers. Only one of them has broken 1,000 yards. It was John Brown, but Christian Kirk got pretty darn close last year with over 900 yards. So if we're taking what I would say is one of the glitchiest, I don't want to say one of the most exciting young wide receivers in the league in Rondale Moore, but he certainly bears some consideration given his play style. If there's a clean fill-in for Rondale Moore taking that Christian Kirk role, is this something to legitimately get excited about in fantasy football, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Christian Kirk was a starter many weeks this past year for fantasy rosters. He was a great waiver wire pickup. I really want to see what they do with that wide receiver 2 spot. There are some rumors it could be Julio. They could bring in another free agent. They could draft another wide receiver. So I really want to see what they do with that number 2 role, but definitely like the fact that Rondale would be taking that, the slot. You can get him open, scheme him open on a lot of plays. So yeah, I definitely, and I love his speed. I really would be surprised if they don't take advantage of that even more this second year.
Anything else to add on that one, Travy?
Yeah, I just think that we've talked about this before with like a Zach Ertz, with AJ Green gone, with Chase Edmonds gone, some of these vacated targets, that are there could easily be funneled towards a guy like Zach Ertz, towards a guy like Rondale Moore. And I'm excited to see where this offense goes because Zach Ertz, a possession tight end who's going to drop down, is perfect. We've been talking about this air raid for years now, and what we figured out about Cliff Kingsbury, it's more of the horizontal raid. It's more of him doing a lot of screens and picks and things that wrap around. Shout out to Rich Rebar of Sharp Analysis for that one, but that's really what it's been. And it's been this situation of I'm going to get my playmakers the ball as fast as possible. And I think Rondale Moore is a perfect prototype for that kind of style of play. Give yourself a Tyreek Hill light, a Cooper Kupp light, and somebody that you can get into space, end around, and make the defense miss. You get that paired with another possession receiver to replace AJ Green. Hopefully not Julio for Arizona Cardinals fans' sake.
Yeah,
hopefully somebody that actually can get down the field a little bit. But we'll see. I wouldn't be mad if my Packers got Julio right now at this point. So I can't really besmirch it too much. But yeah, I think it's exciting to pick up Rondale Moore this year. A lot of vacated targets there to go around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a kind of a fun piece. See if that ground raid can turn into the air raid. We'll finally see if
Barber Shack says, plus there's no way James Conner gets 18 touchdowns again. No, he's going to get 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chase Edmonds is gone.
I just don't know why James Conner wouldn't. A lot of people think he's going to be overdrafted this year. Is Eno the reason why? Is that we think Eno is going to be good enough?
I don't know if he'll. What was just something interesting was that Cliff Kingsbury came out and talked about Eno Benjamin and how much he improved / took on the workload that Cliff Kingsbury asked of him. So he should take another step forward. You would presume, takes the Chase Edmonds role. But he did leave the caveat open that we'll see what happens in the draft. So they could be looking to get a running back in the draft. So if they take one of those, again, they kind of want to look at the draft capital and say, okay, where did they take said running back if they take a running back? But I wouldn't be surprised just because it's been a little weird with Eno. Not to say I think that he could be good. I do think that, giving him that Chase Edmonds role could be very good for him. But there's just something that's a little bit weird about how the Cardinals have been handling Eno that just seems a little fishy to me, that they're not exactly sold on him being that secondary running back.
7th rounder, right?
Yeah, 7th rounder. But he was really good in college. He came out. He did come out that year when there was a plethora of running back talent. With the it was a couple of years ago with all the running backs that came out with Dobbins, all that. There was
Johnny. Is Larry coming back, dude? You have Larry, Ertz, JJ Watt, dude.
That was Julio. Quietest superstar retirement we have ever.
That's how he wanted it.
You don't even wanted it. I know, and he pulled it off. He pulled it off, but just like a Hall of Fame top 10 wide receiver, maybe even higher than that. all time, I bet there's a lot of people who still think he's playing football. Like that was just
well, it's because he officially hasn't actually retired. That's the other part. Like he didn't release anything like Tom Brady did or anything like that.
Him and Tupac going to lunch next week. I heard.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Moving on, his connections and high income, I wouldn't be surprised.
Running back free agent winners and losers. For all we know, this is a running back game in many ways, at least the robust ones here. We wanted to talk a little bit about this article that came up and some of the takes that were in there on this running backs, winners and losers. So Johnny, you want to give us a take here, a breakdown here on the winners that are listed here and the losers.
Yeah, so we found this article written by Andrew Cooper over here on Fantasy Alarm. So if you want to also come on the show, just hit us up. But he listed out some winners and losers here, and we're gonna start off with the losers, I believe, right? That was what we were doing. We're gonna start off with these losers. We're gonna talk about. He listed Antonio Gibson as a loser, Chris Carson as a loser in free agency, Keyshawn Vaughn as a loser in fantasy football free agency, along with Miles Sanders, Mike Davis, Zach Moss, Damian Harris, and Alvin Kamara. So
do we agree with these ones? Johnny, what are after reading those names here, what do you think about some of these losers? Because I'm looking at Antonio Gibson, and I know that J.D. McKissick came back over there, but I'm not sure if I totally see him as a fantasy loser. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm definitely not buying that Gibson is a loser for fantasy purposes. I think that if he's trying to be contrarian, then I'll give him kudos because I don't think you're going to see this take very often. Because now Gibson's door, like, look at that. McKissick has had 289 receptions for over almost 3,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Gibson, on the other hand, has only had 44 receptions for just under 900 yards or a little over 800 and 10 touchdowns. There is a massive gap that let's not forget and kid ourselves that Gibson was a wide receiver coming out of college. He can do that. He just has not been given that opportunity. One, because you had J.D. McKissick there that was being effective, but they also didn't need to. Like, they were trying to keep Gibson fresh.
In the first year, they wanted to teach him the position, so it wasn't important for them to use him as the pass catcher. In the second year, it did seem like the shin injury was a big cloud over Antonio Gibson all year long. Whether valid or not, they did seem to use McKissick in a spell situation and not use Gibson as a CMC type bell cow. Now, if Gibson can come in fully healthy, I think it behooves the offense to use Gibson as a bell cow, and it behooves us in fantasy as well if that happens. I don't know how he's a loser here getting Carson Wentz. This is arguably the best quarterback that the Washington football team or Commanders or Commies or whatever they're called has had over the last couple of years, and I know that's not saying a lot because they haven't had a lot, but he has still been a viable QB, if not for fantasy, for people around him in fantasy. And I think that's the case with Gibson.
I was even there a little bit. Like, he was an RB1 back in last year. He and a broken shin, like a fractured shin all year. He's back. And I like your point there of the best quarterback he's probably had, meaning more first downs, more opportunities. And I think being in your third year with a healthy shin is overall good. So I'm with you on these ones, guys.
I love the right here. It was just saying that, like, beyond just the RB room, the Commanders lost Brandon Sharif, one of the best guards in the league, but they also settled for Carson Wentz, while other teams traded for guys like Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, and Deshaun Watson. Just not an ideal offseason for Gibson. Listen, this guy actually, Jonathan Taylor wasn't the number one running back last year and had Carson Wentz as his quarterback. Come on.
I'd have a little more punch in that line if you didn't mention settling for Wentz, because Matt Ryan was a bit of a settle, I think, as well for the Colts. Notice he was the last guy traded for. So, like, let's not sit here and say that they settled. If nothing changed with Washington and they didn't get Carson Wentz, then you could have a little bit more to say, like, oh, yeah, Gibson's a bit of a loser this offseason. But I actually like Wentz's addition to Commanders.
Yeah,
I can't believe I just said that entire sentence.
I'm with Ronald here. Chris Carson is not coming back. They got to stop even mentioning him. We spend time. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm not okay calling Chris Carson a loser when it's a neck injury that's probably going to take him out. Like, I just
we're all winners as God's children. Yeah. Right, like that's how I'm looking at this.
Exactly. From the cross to the grave, dude.
All right, from the grave to the sky. Keyshawn Vaughn, we lift your name on high. At least we've been trying to for a little while on this. We like Keyshawn Vaughn. We know that our homie Brett Szabo did in Dynasty, drafting him in the first round to be the handcuff.
Oh, he did. Hey, that was the
guy who drafted.
Wanted him.
The guy who had the most influence in drafting Keyshawn Vaughn is now no longer the head coach.
Hey,
so
you're out, LaFleur.
We say that a lot, right? It's not your guy. Like Keyshawn, whose guy is Keyshawn Vaughn's? Like his mother's? At this point, I'm not sure if it goes beyond that.
Yeah, I mean,
it is the gospel.
Hey, it is the same coaching staff, I guess. So you could say that.
Yeah, Keyshawn Vaughn's looking for amazing grace to save a wretch like him because he's pretty much gone.
Oh wow, man!
Does Keyshawn Vaughn end up going somewhere else at some point? Like we've never seen what he's about. Is he good? We have no idea, right?
I imagine he translate to a Chris Thompson if he's good enough. Translates to a Chris Thompson, to a J.D. McKissick, to these pass-catching scat backs if he can land in the right system. It's never happened because Brady's not going to go out there with a guy that he doesn't really trust. And it's not going to happen in Tampa. So maybe like Ronald Jones before him, he goes and leaves the team and maybe gets another opportunity, but we'll see. He's just strictly been kind of special teams for now.
No. I definitely call this one a loser. Like this is an unfortunate situation for Keyshawn Vaughn's projected fantasy production.
Yeah.
Leonard Fournette is good, and he was killing it at the end of the season in terms of pass catching. Like we talked about that a couple weeks ago, that off the top of my head, Leonard Fournette was like in the top 6 or 7 in terms of targets in the last month plus of football there. So Leonard Fournette could be coming in as a running back 1. Quick question on this, Thunder style. What round do you think Leonard Fournette should be drafted in half point or standard leagues, 12-team leagues?
I like the second round or third round for Leonard Fournette. I think that's where he should go. I mean, the only thing I would be concerned with is injury, but I'm concerned with half the first round on that account. And I just saw too much of it. When they give the ball to Leonard Fournette with, unabated, he is a RB1, and that's enough for me to go after Leonard Fournette this season.
What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I would have to beginning of the third is where I think he'll end up kind of being just because there's the upside there again, and then you of course, but you have to bake in the downside, which is why I do think he falls and kind of to Travis's point, I would be interested in that. I think it's worth the gamble there.
Ronald saying in the third. I think I feel good on that one. Johnny, you and I talked a little about the little things in a player and an athlete's demeanor and their preparation that are big signals for us on where their minds are at, which can be a point suggesting where they're headed, what their trajectory is like. We talked a little bit about that earlier with commitment to diet and physique for players. Like when we talked about Mac Jones, we talked about Eddie Lacy, we talked about Luka Doncic as well, Zion Williamson. We talked about some of these little things here. One of the points I wanted to bring up on the other side of it, like these little signals that show me somebody's got actually more cooking than you might think, is that video of Leonard Fournette getting hit and giggling every time he gets hit. Like, you guys seen that video? Have you seen that video, Johnny?
No.
He's mic'd up. When Leonard Fournette gets hit, he giggles like this.
It reminds me of Andrew Luck getting sacked and telling him thanks. Good hit.
He genuinely enjoys it. Like his brain is rewired in a way that physical pain hits his pleasure receptors. Like 3 massive linebackers are dragging this dude down and he's going, and what it shows to me is he is absolutely not afraid of getting hit. It's kind of the opposite. He likes it. He goes for it. And that to me shows it doesn't matter if his body kind of starts breaking down. He's going to keep doing everything he can because he legit loves it. He's got the role, he's got the team, he's got the offensive line.
Something could end up being a steal. And maybe I would be more inclined to go third round. I think second round would be the highest, maybe end of the second. And what I saw out of Leonard Fournette is similar to Johnny pointed out about Gronk and some other players for this team. This reminds me of a Lakers or Celtics dynasty team in the NBA where they kind of coast through the regular, or the Bulls even. They coast through the regular season, they get to the playoffs, and then they gear up and they flip a switch and they're on for it. And I think Tampa Bay is a victim of that. Fournette got hurt, sat out the last 2 to 3 weeks, said, I'm going to save myself, came back for the playoffs for them. And that is going to be something that we have to bake into guys like him, Godwin, Mike Evans as a possibility for this team, because the only reason Brady came back is to get another ring. Like that's that's what they're doing here. So,
not for stats. I'll tell you that.
Feel this one. So Barber coming and asking, is Saquon a loser this offseason if he's not traded?
He still plays for the Giants, right?
I mean, guilty by association, right?
Yeah. I mean, and then Ronald came in saying, now the Giants are bolstering the line. I think Barkley will be a good value pick in the 4th round. It'll be interesting to see where his ADP lands, but I do think that Barkley is worth kind of a stab as some of these other guys. You got to shake off the injury risk, but he's going to be a guy that they're going to use if he's on the field. And so, you go after that. It's not like he has to worry about a timeshare or somebody coming in. There's so much, invested in Saquon that they will use him. Yeah. It's just, your risk mitigation. Would you rather risk Leonard Fournette or Saquon? Personally, I'm going Fournette here, so, but that's kind of where we're at with it.
What about you, Johnny? Leonard Fournette or Saquon Barkley?
I'm going with the better offense. I'd go Leonard Fournette if I have to choose between the two. But I don't know if they're going to necessarily go back-to-back just because of how bad Saquon has been over the last few years. I think that you're going to get a lot. And similar to, and it could be very much how we viewed Derrick Henry just a few years ago, right? Derrick Henry a few years ago, going in the 4th, he was, he had a couple of years where he couldn't stay healthy, couldn't, get that bulk of the carries. And then all of a sudden, the last 3 years, he's been back in the RB1 conversation. So that could be the case for Saquon, but there are some pieces that need to be put together and things like that. So,
where I would love this to happen, and I have no idea if the ADP would work out, but the kind of situation I'd love is if I'm drafting at the 12 spot in a 12-person league at the back of the draft, in that 3rd, 4th turn, if I could pick up Leonard Fournette and Saquon Barkley, like in that 3rd, 4th turn, I'm not surprised if both of these guys are RB3s or worse. Like I could see that happening, but you look at them and you're like, the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the day after your draft, you're going to be goo goo gaga over your lineup.
Yeah.
By week 4, they're out of your lineup and dead. I could easily see that.
You're starting Michael Carter Jr. now instead of either one of those guys.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think so too.
What was I going to say? Oh, but I'm just interested to see this offense in general. But I wanted to point out that Brian Daboll, who's coming over as head coach, coming from that same Bills squad that did not run the ball a lot. So maybe this is something to keep an eye on because they are trying to revamp Daniel Jones, get the line invested. Maybe they use Saquon more as a receiver. But that's what I would be looking
I'm glad he is healthy. This is kind of like a prove it type of year. We'll learn a lot in this year coming up.
And in general, that's more so what we see from athletes is the year after their surgery, they have a hard time. And then it's the second year after the injury that they really kind of hit the ground running per se, or get back to their norm.
We're going to keep it running, as Johnny mentioned here, and talk about the winners of the of the NFL off season over here. So we just got done with the possible losers, some we agreed with, some we disagreed with. But now let's take a look at some of the winners over here. Chase Edmonds is the first one. Johnny, you and I got into a bit of a spirited discussion before the show around Chase Edmonds. You really like this as a winner type of outcome. I'm not sure if I'm buying any of the Miami backfield, but you're feeling really good about Mike McDaniel and the Kyle Shanahan tree that he comes from and the way that they use running backs and the expected role you foresee for Chase Edmonds. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much entirely it, right? Like you look at what they paid. I mean, you look at what they paid him, right? They paid him $12.6 million for 2 years. So that indicates to me that you're not going to, which by the way, James Conner got paid like $6.5 million a year. So it's roughly the same amount of money. And like, we all know what the production was like last year.
How much did Kenny Golladay get paid last year?
Right, but it's not equating that you're going to make plays, right? But when did they not use Kenny G? Did they not try to get him involved? They did, and so like the same thing is going. They had Daniel Jones was terrible at targeting any wide.
Talking about snap percentage,
like What do you? Anyway, Kenny G was battling injuries the whole season, and then when he could play, he was in there. Like I trying to equate Kenny G to Chase Edmonds' value is completely.
No, I'm just talking about the point of suggesting production and salary are connected.
There is a correlation. There is more of a correlation with what they plan on doing with a person based on how much they pay him versus if they pay him pennies and expecting not that much. Like there is definitely research.
He'll get the shot. He'll get the first shot you'd expect. And that's what they want him to be. But if in training camp he gets outdone by someone else, they're not going to keep him over somebody who's outperforming him, are they?
Here's the thing: is Chase Edmonds probably not even going to be number one on that depth chart. That's why I think he's a winner. Because the thing is Raheem Mostert is coming from. He also came over. He got signed, and the reason why it's so important, and the reason why I'm like so gung ho that Chase Edmonds actually a value, and I agree, is because. Look at the coaching system and the staff and what's going to be implemented, baby. It's going to be that Kyle Shanahan run zone scheme, baby, that we all love for fantasy football. But here's the thing. It's not always the number, or in most cases, it's not the number one guy that you go for. It's not the, Raheem Mostert, because he's probably going to get injured.
Not the Trey Sermon.
And it's not not the Trey Sermon. But what it ended up, and this is where I did kind of joke about the whole thing, is that in honesty, we might look back at the end of the year and it's probably going to be Gaskin that ends up being the best value of all of them because that system just bangs up running backs. They get injured, and then it usually ends up being that third running back that ends up actually being the value. And so when I'm looking at the whole thing right now, Chase Edmonds is a value to me. I do think he will be good in that system because it's a zone run scheme system, a one cut, one read kind of thing. And he can do that. He's fast. He also has good hands and can catch out of the backfield. So you pair all that, and with the other pieces on this offense, it's going to be hard to stop Chase because you're going to be worried about Tyreek, about Waddle, about Gesicki. So I do think it's going to be a productive running scheme.
What about you, Travy?
I think there's a couple things going on, and what we saw was in the chat here. Ronald says, "When is the last time Miami had a good running back?"
Can we stop with this argument?
No, hold on a second. I'm finishing this. Hold on a second. Okay, and then he comes in and actually lists them all. Right? He says Jay Ajayi, Lamar Miller, Frank Gore, Gaskin, Lindsey. So kudos to you, Ronald. But then Barber says all busts. Ronald agrees and says, yeah, Miami kills talent. Excuse me. Lamar Miller was an RB6 and an RB9 in fantasy in Miami. And RB1 was Jay Ajayi in Miami.
Not just a guy.
Yeah, they were actually very usable. They did go on elsewhere and have good teams. As if any of that matters, though, guys, because guess what? We're talking about a completely different Miami Dolphins team with a completely different head coach. And as Johnny alluded to, yes, we love the Shanahan tree, but it's not like we just love Kyle Shanahan's zone running scheme. His dad revolutionized running in the NFL. This is not just anybody's shake a leg at a coaching tree, and it's not just any position that we like in fantasy. This is really, really big minds on fantasy. And Kyle Shanahan trusted Mike McDaniel so much that this kid who looks like Rodrigo Blankenship is now the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And now you could come in and say, but yeah, Miami Dolphins, where they're allegedly paying off coaches to lose. Okay, sure. You could get me on the decision-making process. But I've listened to Mike McDaniel's talk, and I know what Kyle Shanahan puts on the field running-wise. And if there's anything I trust in this offense, it's probably the running game, even over a Tyreek Hill's production, even over a Jalen Waddle's production, because I can trust the running scheme. I mean, look at it all. LaFleur, Sean McVay, we have seen massive years from the running. We've seen massive, yeah, exactly. Gary Kubiak, great point. We have seen massive running back years from this kind of scheme and from this particular tree. So throw your Miami. It's not like we're talking about the Lions here, where they really have killed running backs over the years. We're talking about a new scheme here. That was just a shot for Johnny. But we are talking about a new scheme, and I'm actually really excited about the youth movement in Miami about bringing this guy in. And if you want to say Raheem Mostert and Myles Gaskin and these guys are just too many bodies out there, well, then you're looking at the wrong bodies to be in the way of Chase Edmonds here. Chase Edmonds is, to me, clearly the most talented back and the best, well, maybe the best health history of the backs that are there. So I'm really excited. I think Chase Edmonds is a winner, and I think the Raheem Mostert signing actually will do better for his ADP than anything. Austin, sorry to cut you off there.
No. I'm right there with you, and I just want to throw in the point on Chase Edmonds' workload. We were on last year saying that he might get hurt. He's undersized. He's being used in a way he's never been used before. And what did he do? He got hurt, and James Conner was there. That is new information, though, that can be held. I think McDaniel will. I think he's already looking to deploy a platoon of running backs. And I'll tell you what, I wasn't the biggest Chase Edmonds supporter last year. I watched this dude play football just from the eye test. This guy is so shifty. This guy actually is a problem when he's out there. Like, I talk about value over replacement all the time. In terms of his ability to be nimble and quick, like, good luck replacing Chase Edmonds in terms of that category.
We also
Miami's going to be good, dude. I don't do this every year with Miami or teams like this. I usually stay off of that, when I'm smelling. But Miami should be really good. They have so many good skill position players. If you're looking for a new kid or a new young coach to get in and get it going, this is the perfect setup. And I don't think it's bad to invest in this team across the board, but I think the running game is one to not shy away from. We've heard it now on 4 different topics, right? Where, Ronald, Mr. Miyagi are like, oh, I'm going to stay away from this backfield. Like, don't be scared. If you're scared, go to church. Like, we're here to get a running back from one of these teams and have him explode and be your league winner. Let's try and figure out which one that is.
I was trying to find here the Ronald Church comment that he put in there. I couldn't get it to stay right in stride. That would have been, there we go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. Exactly. We're all about church. The Lord's Day today, man.
Yeah, dude. Well, and the thing is, too, Gaskin last year was an RB2.
Oh, here we go. I knew you were going to get Gaskin.
Gaskin was an RB2 last year.
RB24, baby.
Didn't he have one game with 4 touchdowns? Isn't that why?
It doesn't matter, baby.
Yeah, it does,
the same
though.
thing. Hey,
it's a little bit of context.
No, I'll tell you why it doesn't, because I get shit on all the time.
Whoa, dude.
Herbert,
I'm not going to kink shame you. I'm not going to kink shame you, bro.
No, I get Herbert.
We don't kink shame here, my dude.
Too. Not you guys.
You and OBJ, huh?
Hey, Herbert was a quarterback too. Yeah, because half
taking
his
a number
weeks,
2.
He didn't. He was a top 20 quarterback.
Yeah.
Man, I love this here. All right. Well, we the last name that we had on there, we talked about some of the winners and losers. James Conner winner. I'm there with it. Najee Harris, Michael Carter, Joe Mixon. I think those ones are pretty obvious. The last one that we'll talk on here is Travis Etienne. And if we agree with Andrew Cooper here, author of the article, that Travis Etienne was a big winner here. Big Travy, what is your initial take on this?
Well, Travis Etienne is a winner because he's named Travis.
Of course.
He's a winner because he was drafted in the first round.
Nice money.
He's a winner because Urban Meyer no longer coaches him in football. Unfortunately for him, that might have been his only ticket to being drafted in the first round and drafted on the Jaguars in the first place, because James Robinson is absolutely awesome at the running back position. Now, and this team, you could say, okay, but they're going to use him as a slot receiver, scat pack. Okay, they just paid Christian Kirk so much money to be their slot wide receiver. They just paid a bunch of other wide receivers and a tight end to take up some of those routes too. I don't see a path to major success for Travis Etienne. So yeah, if we're talking about him personally in life, sure, we could call him a winner. In fantasy football, I don't really see it.
We are all winners as God's children.
Yeah, exactly. Father Abraham had many sons.
At the end here,
many sons had Father Abraham.
I like how it says here at the end here, Etienne could be a really sneaky value at his ADP. What do you mean undrafted? Because that's where he's at right now. No one's drafting him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to go undrafted, but he's definitely going to be. And people, you can get those people out there that are going to say, well, draft the later and maybe younger running back, and that's a decent strategy.
You're only 6 months age apart.
Yeah, but yes, Austin, I was just going to drop your nugget there. No, it's all good. I'm glad you found that for the show, because that's where it's at. He is not that much younger than James Robinson, and James Robinson has done it. And that's the thing. We can talk about first round pedigree. We can talk about if Urban Meyer was still there, yeah, maybe. But your guy's gone. So now your guy's gone, and we've already seen it out of James Robinson. I just don't see how you can make Travis Etienne a winner here.
Look at what our boy Dougie, did with running backs in Philadelphia. You got LeGarrette Blount. Yep, you got LeGarrette Blount over there.
The guy that Ronald thinks was a nobody, dude.
Liv Lafajayi was over there. at that time. That's what he had to change his name to, because that's how productive he was. So I do think that I love James Robinson. Where his ADP is an absolute travesty right now, and it will rise. But for me, I thought it was pretty comical. Again, I could be completely wrong here. Travis Etienne could be the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, and Etienne scored a ton of touchdowns in college and came from Clemson and a national championship winning program. And there are going to be a ton of people that love Travis Etienne for those reasons, and there's going to be these truthers out there. James Robinson has already done what we want, and that's the bottom line, pretty much. So
because Stone Cold said so,
that's
and don't
right.
you forget it. Love it.
That's
hey,
right.
Well, this wraps up our conversation around running backs, winners and losers. If you got anything from this, or if you didn't get anything at all, it's all good. You can still go hit the thumbs up button, and we would sincerely appreciate it if you enjoyed what you're listening to and you want to catch more of this. If you want to be a part of a fantasy football community where you are welcome to be here exactly as you are, hit that subscribe button, man. We go live every Monday doing our mock drafts over on Sleeper. And immediately afterwards, we use Underdog Fantasy to draft our best ball leagues right there with you. Real money. We've been doing $3 entry fees. We've been doing 6-person drafts. We get more people jumping in here. We're going to go ahead and expand that out. Regardless, you've got a chance next Monday and this Monday to be a part of the show and to draft alongside us. Go ahead and download Underdog Fantasy. And when you do, use the promo code TFW. They're going to match up to $100. So you put $75 in, they give you $75 so that you can waste it on parlay picks for basketball like I've been doing the last month. It's been awesome. I've made a lot of money on football, been losing a good amount of money on basketball, been having more fun than I've ever had in the process, though, win or lose, because Underdog is legit super fun. I really encourage you to download it. Use TFW as the promo code, get that matched money, and then join us on Monday. We'll be back next Thursday as well, but we're not going anywhere just yet. We've got Travis's Gone in 60 Seconds here to wrap us out on this one before we say our goodbyes.
Oops, sorry. Clicked on that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk because we're 3 days removed now from Will Smith and Chris Rock incident at the Oscars, and I just wanted to say, I've been talking to a lot of people at a bar or something in passing, and people on the internet, and it was staged. It's distracting us from this conspiracy theory or whatever. It doesn't matter. What it does is gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves and say, how are we representing for the people that we love? And how are we fighting for the people that we love? Do we fight with them physically? And there may be times in your life where that actually matters or can be valuable. But I am here to say, as a victim of physical abuse within my family, that most of the time you can get through with just pure love and without having to do this. And it reminded me of some of these situations when we talk a lot of shit in fantasy football and we get heated at football games, and we've seen the violence there. Guys, if you're angry, if you're hurting, if you need help, reach out. And even if that's to here at TFW, we've got your back. We can help you as well. But I just want, as somebody who struggles with anger and who has struggled from abuse as well, it's never okay to just go up and handle it through physicality if there are other options available. And there certainly was that at the Oscars. So that's all I have to say. I'll get off my soapbox on that one.
Man, Travy, thank you for saying those words, dude. Yeah. You got me choked up there for a second. I think you had a really powerful and important message. I hope everybody out there is safe. I hope everybody out there is able to handle their problems. And I'd say that if a loved one of yours is hurting, be there for them. Don't be there to attack the thing that hurt them. Be there for them because they're hurting right now, and you can turn that love back to them and be there with them and make them feel better, not just take out that emotion on another human being or on another inanimate object. Be there for the people that you love and lead with that love.
100%.
Well said, Travis. Jesus, that was awesome.
That was good.
Johnny, any other words that you'd like to share before we wrap this one out?
No, just, I will say, rest in peace to our dog Charlie. We had to put him down the other day. It was hard. I'm sorry, man. But I just want to shout out to that guy. He gave me and my family some good years. So love that guy. Miss you. Miss your stinky farts here live on air and having you sit by my chair while we're live. So
you get me emotional on this one, man. I genuine emotion, genuine tears on this one. That dog was amazing. And you told this story about how stinky his farts were, and you gave him the English McMuffin from McDonald's. his last meal, and then his farts were so bad that he'd smell them and crop dust himself, and then he'd leave.
Yeah,
his farts like, he wouldn't stay in the same room.
Yeah, he's like, I'm out of here. I just crop dusted y'all.
Oh, Charlie is was an amazing dog, man, and I know he meant so much to you and Jade, and just in the couple times I met him, he was a great spirit. Initially a little grumpy, but hey, any old man is, in their old age, and that'll happen. But man, he is, as they say, all dogs go to heaven, so he's in a better place now, brother.
Yeah, dedicating this one here to Charlie on behalf of Johnny Game Time Hicks. That's Big Travy. I'm Austin Sear. We're the Fantasy Whispers. We're out.
Peace.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're still not sold on us, check out one of these.